Okay, folks, Bismillah, welcome back. We're looking at percentages review, looking at calculating percentages of how do we do these particular questions. We're joined by a new student today, Mr. Qasim. So, when we want to work out 1% of something, okay, what does 1% mean? 1% means that we want to work out 1/100th of something. So, to work out 1%, we have to divide by, I want you to green. Divided by 100 to work out 1%. So 200 divided by 100, what do we do? In this particular case, cancel off the zeros, divide by 100 top and bottom. So 1% of 200 is 2. Alishba, I want to work out 3% of 60. Where do I start by working out 3% of 60? How would I do that? First of all, we got to work Alishba. What do we work out first? Moise hinted to the answer earlier. I want to work out 3%. So we first of all start with 1%. So we work out 1% first. Now if we want to work 1% of 60, what do we do? We divide it by, what do we divide it by? We divide it by 100. So 60 divided by 100 gives us 0.6. Now, Ikra, I want to get from 1% to 3%. What do I do to 1% to make it into 3?
Times by 3.
Times by 3. 0.6 times by 3 will give us an answer of 1.8. And that's 3% done. Okay. Now, if we want to work out 10% of something, 10% we say is equivalent to what?
Divided by 10.
10% of something is 1/10 of something. To work out 1/10, what do we do?
Divided by 10.
Divide by 10. So 80 divided by 10, divide that by 10, divide that by 10, and that gives us an answer of 8. Okay? Okay, right. We want to work out 5% of 90. So the technique for working out 5% of 90, let's have Ikra. What is the technique for working out 5%? First of all, we work out
10.
First of all, we work out 10%.
Yes. And then
we
divide it by 2.
Divide it by 2. That will give you what? 5%. So 10%, 90 divided by 10 is equal to?
9.
And then 9 divide that by 2 will give us?
4.5. 4.5. So how will is that the answer then? What do we convert it?
That's the answer. Okay, now let's have Arwa. I want to work out, Arwa, 20% of 260. So how do we start that question? We first of all start with work out 10%. To work out 20, we first of all start with 10. So to work out 10% of 260, what do we do to it? We divide it by 10. So the answer for 10% is? Now, once you know what 10% is, Arwa, how do you get from 10 to 20? What do? You double it. Well done. So 10 times by 2 is?
52.
20%. 26 times by 2 is?
I know how to do 25%.
Okay. Right. The next question, Mr. Bilal, you can lead us to that one.
Basically,
If you want to work out 25%, what does it mean and how do we work it out?
divide it by 4.
25% is the same as a quarter, 25 out of 100. So we have to, now to work out 25%, we divide by 4. So 20%, what do we do? First of all, we divide by 10, and then we time by 2. 5%, we divide it by 10. Okay, to work out 10%, then we divide it by 2. Next. Now, to work out 3%, what do we do first? We worked out 1%, and then time by 3. So now, 300 divided by 4. What's another way of dividing by 4 the quick way?
We could divide it by 2, then divide it by 2 again.
That's right. 300 divided by 2 is 150, and then
150 divided by 2.
150 divided by 2 is?
75.
Done. So let's look at 1%, 3%, 10%, 5%, 20%, and 25%. Now, I'm going to give you one question of each one to do now. Let's see how you get on with those.
Can it be any of these percentages? Done! 469. That's easy. So, I was drawing my grid when you were explaining.
Okay, let's have a look. Try some of these questions.
Which one?
The one in black.
All of them.
Yeah, one person in the column that they're in.
How do you going to work that?
So you're going to work out 1% of that, 3% of that. You work out now, your turn.
If you know the answer, do you have to write a method still?
Yeah, of course.
Oh no,
Recording.
yeah, I'm on the last.
Screen. Okay, we got 467 to work out 1%. What do we do?
By 100.
Divided by 100. So divided by 100, put the decimal point at the end. 1, 2. The answer is going to be what?
4.67.
Thank you.
Yay.
Now I want to work out 3% of 250. So first of all, we start with 1%. So divided by 100.
100.
So 1% is equal to 2.5. Now to get to 3%, I times by 3.
That's
7.50.
7.5.
7.5 basically.
So that gives you 3%, and that gives you 7.5. To work out 10% of 887, we simply divide by 10. So that gives you 888.7. To work out 5% of 20, we first of all start with
10.
10%. 10% is divide that by 10,
It's 2.
And then
It's
times
2.
by 2.
and then we halve it. You don't time by 2.
Oh no,
You
what
halve
the
it
heck?
to, from 10% to 5%, we divide it by 2. So 2 divided by 2 will give you 1. 380 to work out 20%. First of all, we start with 10%. So 380 divided by
10.
10
38.
is 38.
38
And then
times
by
by
2.
2 is 76.
72. 76. Yeah, 76.
To work out 25% of 440, we have to divide it by 4. So you can do this bus stop technique as well. And that gives you an answer of 110. End of this small video.